Welcome back to the deep dive. We are tearing into your sources today, looking at a piece of gear that really, I think, captures a key moment for a legendary company, the Electro Harmonix mainframe bit crusher. Our mission really is to go beyond just describing it. We want to look at the pivot. How did this company, famous for, well, glorious analog chaos like the Big Muff or the Memory Man delay, how did they jump so successfully into intentional digital destruction using precision for chaos? Okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah, the timing is really key here. It came out mid-2020, and it wasn't just, looking backwards. It was definitely part of EHX pushing hard into modern DSP. Think like the Ocean's 12, the Pitchfork Plus thick. It's kind of a statement piece, isn't it? Taking that old school, chunky 80s digital artifact sound, but giving today's musician total precise control over all that imperfection.
Right. It's like they weaponize the limitations of early digital tech. Memory limits, slow processing, turn them into features. But okay, before we get into the controls, we need to understand the core of it, the engines of destruction. What are we actually talking about when we say digital degradation? What's the mainframe doing?
Well, it really boils down to deliberately reducing the audio information. You can think of it in two ways, two main functions. First up is bit depth reduction. Think of bit depth as the vertical detail in the sound wave, how many steps describe the loudness. The mainframe, it can take a clean, modern 24-bit signal and just crush it way down, all the way to 1 bit, potentially.
1 bit. Wow. That's basically just on or off, like a square wave, super jagged.
Exactly. And that huge drop in resolution, that's what gives you that instant, crunchy, squared-off digital sound. It mimics those really early samplers where, 8-bit was maybe the best you could hope for because memory was so expensive.
Okay, so bit depth is the vertical crunch. Then the second thing must be about the horizontal, the timing, how fast it's sampling.
That's it. Sample rate reduction. And the mainframe has a massive range here, too. You can take a standard, say, 48 kilohertz sample rate, totally clean, and drop it down to, well, a crawl, 110 hertz. That's where things really start to fall apart rhythmically and tonally.
And this is where it gets fascinating, I think, because when you lower the sample rate that much, you're not getting distortion in the usual sense, like overloading a tube. You're actually creating new sounds through math.
Right.
Stuff like aliasing, those stepped harmonics engineers talk about.
Yeah, aliasing is the big one here. We should probably explain that a bit. Essentially, the system just can't keep up. It tries to sample a high frequency, but its clock is too slow. So it kind of misinterprets it. It hears it as a completely different frequency, often something really dissonant and metallic. It's a digital mistake, basically, but one that creates a new sound, sometimes a useful one.
Ah, okay, so it's the sound of the computer failing, and that failure is the effect. Pure digital grit. It's math chopping off data, not a component clipping.
Clean degradation, you could call it.
Yeah. So once we get these raw destruction methods, the next question is, how do you shape it? Make it usable. That's where the controls come in. The mainframe isn't just about brute force. It seems designed for sculpting how broken you want it. And the controls look pretty precise, right? Not just vague effect amount knobs. You've got those dedicated knobs, bit depth, 1 to 24 bits, and sample rate 110 hertz all the way up to 48K. That's a huge range.
Absolutely. But, if you just use the raw crushed signal on its own, it could easily become way too harsh, too loud, maybe just unusable noise. Which brings us to a really vital control, something essential for these kinds of effects. The blend knob. You almost always need that blend. It lets you mix your original clean, dry signal back in with the affected signal. This means your core tone, your dynamics, they stay intact. The digital crunch kind of sits on top. Super important for things like bass or drums, keeps the punch.
Yeah, that blend makes it sit in a mix instead of just taking over. But even blended, those aliasing artifacts can be really sharp, right? Piercing highs. So how does EHX deal with that? Taming the harshness of digital failure.
Right, that's where the filter comes in. They included a dedicated low-pass filter. It's specifically there to shave off those spiky, harsh digital edges. It's crucial. You're not just filtering normal audio signal, you're kind of filtering the digital math itself. Rolling off that top end can take it from screechy noise to something with a warmer, almost vintage digital vibe, like old converters.
And there's one more control that seems unique, really speaks to the detail they went into. The clock knob. It's not just EQ, is it? It controls the speed of the internal clock.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It affects the musicality of the whole thing. Changing that clock speed directly changes the harmonic structure of the crushed sound. So if you tune the clock rate to something musically related to your input signal, the harmonics can sound quite tonal, like chiptune. But if you set it randomly, you get more dissonant static. That's you choose between controlled noise and, well, melody.
Okay, so precision over the destruction, precision mixing, precision over the harmonics. But for a modern player, especially someone into sound design, the big question is dynamics. How do you make this destruction move?
And that leads us straight to the EXP CV input. This is critical. This input really lifts the mainframe beyond just a simple stomp box. It becomes a proper studio or modular tool. You can hook up an expression pedal, or importantly, control voltage from a synth or sequencer, and assign it to control any parameter, bit depth, sample rate, the filter.
Ah, that's the game changer. So you could sync the crushing effect to your track's tempo, do like smooth filter sweeps with your foot or rhythmic glitching that follows your modular system.
Exactly. It stops being static. It becomes interactive, a responsive lo-fi instrument itself. And that CV control really explains why it appeals across genres. Which brings us to the sound itself. If you use it subtly, that classic bit crushing definitely gives you that vintage digital character. Think old samplers, maybe an Ensoniq Mirage or an EMU SP12 sound.
But pushing the sample rate down hard, the sources say it goes way beyond just crunch. It starts making these complex metallic sounds, almost like ring modulation, stepped harmonics. Sounds like a sound designer's playground.
Oh, for sure. And if you look at specific instruments, for guitarists, it opens up new worlds. People use it for those 8-bit video game lead sounds, or for creating weird, glitchy textures under ambient stuff. It's a very different kind of aggression compared to, say, a fuzz pedal.
And for bassists, I hear it's amazing there too.
Yeah, phenomenal. That blend and filter are key. Less bass players get really aggressive, almost gated distortion sounds. Gives the low end this huge digital snarl, but the blend keeps it clear enough to cut through.
But it feels like it was aimed just as much at the electronic scene, right?
Absolutely. For synths and drum machines, it's perfect. Making lo-fi beats, aging samples instantly, doing that whole 8-bit sound design thing. You can take a pristine modern synth and give it instant vintage digital character.
And even in the studio, just for mixing.
Definitely. Sources mention using it to process stuff that's too clean. Vocals, drum loops, acoustic samples, run them through the mainframe to add that specific texture. It's like a high-quality imperfection generator. So if we zoom out a bit, what does the mainframe tell us about where EHX was heading in the 2020s?
Yeah.
I mean, for so long, they were the kings of fuzz, analog delay. This pedal really marked their solid footing as creators of advanced digital processors, too. And processors that appealed equally to synth heads and guitar players, which wasn't always their focus.
Yeah, it feels like a bridge in their lineup, connecting that love for analog character, that messiness, with really sophisticated, modern digital sound design. It became a bit of a cult hit, didn't it? Praised for being powerful but intuitive.
That's right, and reinforced this idea that maybe the best sounds aren't always about perfect fidelity. Sometimes it's about controlling the flaws. And it got that reputation because it was easy to use and because of that CV expression input we talked about. Made it really dynamic.
So maybe the big takeaway here is the mainframe showed EHX mastering precision engineering, specifically for creating chaos. It proved their analog soul could fully embrace digital destruction, and it positioned them as a leader in creative tools for, well, everyone playing music now, the Electro Harmonix mainframe.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. Shows how smart engineering can be used not just for clean sounds, but for perfectly controlled, really musical sonic wreckage.
Exactly. And maybe that's the final thought for you listening. In this world obsessed with high-fidelity, perfect audio, this pedal highlights the huge creative potential in deliberately messing with the flaws of older tech. Glitches as features, right? So here's something to think about. What specific kind of lo-fi sound, maybe 8-bit, maybe cassette warp, maybe even dial-up modem noise, what would you want to hear applied to a totally modern instrument? Thanks for diving deep with us.